Welcome everybody back to Life by You and this introductory video on the new crafting system that we just added to the game. My name is Willem Delventhal and I'm actually the newest game designer on the team. This is my first video, so great to meet all of you. Game designers primarily work on the systems and mechanics of the game to find the fun, and I was tasked with creating a fun and satisfying crafting system for all of you. Now, remember, before anything else, that all of this may well change. That is a big part of game design, iterating until we really make something awesome. Now, the four primary crafting categories that we decided to include in the game are archaeology, floristry, beachcombing, and jewelry making. And I'm going to go through each of those four categories and tell you what they're like in the game. Now, I work with many different departments to make this possible, including some of the people you may already know, like Amanda and Leslie, our engineers, to make the actual mechanics and the code underneath the system, and artists like Sean Nakamura to make these beautiful flower models that you're going to see in just a moment. Now, the first thing you're going to notice that's different is troves peppered around your region. A trove is kind of like a little treasure chest that you can find in one of the four primary crafting categories. So you might find an archaeology trove or a beachcombing trove in corresponding locations. Opening a trove requires no skill and actually progresses your skill in the corresponding category, and it makes your character a little bit more happy. The items inside are randomized, but they're randomized within subcategories. So for instance, you might find a purple wildflower trove, or perhaps an arms and armor archaeology stash. They appear all the time, and if you took a casual scroll across the world, you'd find about a dozen of them, and every time you collect a trove, you'll get a number of ingredients that you can use in crafting for the four primary categories. Now, those subcategories of troves have tendencies for where they appear, and you'll probably start to notice them as you collect the troves. So for instance, did you know that purple wildflowers seem to like high elevation, and that archaeology troves seem to like hillsides and rocky areas? The first primary crafting category is archaeology, where you, the player, can collect and study artifacts that you find around the world, writing research papers, creating unique item and furniture out of them, and all sorts of other goodies. Interestingly, as you become a more and more famous archaeologist, you will actually get noticed for your work. You'll be more likely to get published, you'll make more money from publishing, and people will actually start to mention you. Characters in your town might write you and tell you what they thought of your latest research paper. Now, writing research papers and writing books are actually two different systems, and it only corresponds with the skill that is the expertise on that research paper, so archaeology or other skills that you might write research papers about. We decided to add archaeology to the game because it just feels right. It's fun to explore and find old parts of the world and try to piece together the mysteries of what happened. The second primary crafting category is floristry, where the player can find wildflowers around the world that they can then harvest and turn into all sorts of interesting and useful items. For instance, the player can make unique furniture, much like many of the other crafting categories. But even more interesting is they can turn those wildflowers into mixed seeds. So for instance, if I find a bunch of pink wildflowers, I can turn them into mixed pink seeds. And if I plant these mixed pink seeds and perhaps fertilize them and water them over time, I can then get a random pink flower of a random type. More rare flowers will appear less often, and less rare flowers will, of course, appear more often. I can then harvest those flowers once they have grown, and I can place them in vases around my town and my house in order to really beautify my world. You can find wildflowers all over your region, but just like every other crafting category, they tend to like specific spots. So another fun tip for you, blue wildflowers seem to like forests. Growing flowers is different from finding flowers. So wildflowers are the item that you can find inside of troves that are just used for crafting. They are ingredients. But growing a flower can actually be harvested as a real object and placed in a vase out in the world. Now, the third primary crafting category is beachcombing, where the player can explore the beachside to find seashells and other interesting items, but they can also find other things at unique bodies of water. For instance, there's only one spot where you can find Arctic seashells in the entire region. You'll have to discover that for yourself. There are all sorts of different items that are found in beachcombing troves, largely seashells, but there are also some unique minerals and a few other unique items. And much like the other crafting categories, you can turn these ingredients into unique pieces of furniture, but also fertilizer to be used in gardening and floristry, and a couple of other unique recipes. We decided to add beachcombing to the game simply because our starting town is on the water, and it felt like a great way to add some variety and flavor to your walks along the beach. Now, the final primary crafting category is jewelry making, where you can find rare gemstones, crystals, minerals, and turn them into jewelry and unique items and furniture, just like the other crafting categories. You can mine or find these jewelry making troves all over the town, but mostly they tend to prefer mountainous regions. You can turn these items into, like I said, jewelry and furniture, but also a couple of unique things like this beautiful gemstone wall hanger. There is no required skill to pick up a jewelry making trove, but as you pick them up, you will actually progress down your jewelry making skill. We decided to add jewelry making because it just felt like it fit in a world that relies so much on fashion and dressing up your character. My personal favorite part of the crafting system in general is probably the unique pieces of furniture that you can get per primary crafting category. Right now, each of those four primary crafting categories has four unique furniture items that you'll be able to unlock and add to the game. You first need to find the recipes for these pieces of furniture out in a trove in the wild. Once you learn the recipe, you can create the piece of furniture. You can sell these pieces of furniture, but of course, the best part is placing them in your home and world to beautify and express yourself. My personal favorite piece of furniture is probably the Victorian bed because it's just ridiculously huge and takes up way too much space. All right, that is the four primary crafting categories and an overview of what each of them does and how each of them works. We hope that this allows you to really embody many of your favorite crafting fantasies. Become that famous archaeologist, run your own flower shop from out of your home, create unique furniture, and dress up your town. This also acts as a great template to allow you to add crafting of any variety to the world. Whatever your ideal crafting hobby is, you can add it to the game as a mod and then share it with other players. I am actually really excited to see what all of you add to the game for yourselves and for each other. If you take nothing else away from this video, I hope that you feel that item crafting is a fun system that allows the gating of exciting items and furniture behind a satisfying piece of collectathon and crafting gameplay. You can really make people earn cool items through your own mods, and of course, we've prepared a number of wonderful little items for you to find, craft for yourself. Now, before we go, I would actually love to ask you for some feedback. I have a couple of things that I've been wondering about the crafting system, and iterating on this design is how we make something wonderful. So I've got three questions for you. My first one is very specific. Should I use simpler furniture items like tables and chairs as an ingredient in recipes? So, for example, if I wanted to make the resin wildflower table, I could make it so that you have to go and buy a regular table to then turn into the resin wildflower table. I kind of like this in a sort of DIY mentality, but I'm not sure I like the fact that you have to go and buy something to craft something. So let me know what you think of that. The second thing is more open-ended. I just want to know if there's other gameplay you'd like to see in these primary four categories. So for example, what else might seashell crafting do? Right now you can turn it into unique furniture like every category, but you can also create fertilizer, and that's the main utility you get out of it. You can use that fertilizer in gardening. And my last question for you is just what are some other crafting categories you might like to see in the game, either big or small? I'm really curious to see what you all mod for yourself, but it's possible that we add a couple of other small things here and there as we go. Okay, that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, I'm Willem Delventhal, and this has been a wonderful introduction to crafting in Life by You. I hope all of you are excited, and I hope you share this around with other people and pick up the game when it's ready. All right, take care. Bye bye now.